done the planning, you've done the shooting, but now you've got to edit the actual ads. What happens after the shoot can feel like a lot, but if you organize your post-production process, you can create amazing ads from what you shot. You can have the best research coupled with the best video and talent on camera, but the ad can flop if you don't edit the videos and the graphics correctly. Most editors are not set up for success. Editors are editors. They're not direct response ad copywriters. So you shouldn't expect them to just make an ad that converts. Even with training, that is not their job fully. It is the creative strategist's job to build the framework of the ad. And most people don't even have an organized system. And it is left on the editor who's not ready to create an ad from scratch. But let's change that today by walking through the full editing system that we run at Good O Studios. Welcome to another episode of In the Cutting Room. I'm your host, Matthew Gutozzi. What is up? I'm still kind of, figuring out my flow as a solo podcaster. So let me know if you have any kind of comments or things that you want to see improve. We are going to be talking about the third part of the creation process, post-production. Now, we've talked about ideation. We've talked about shooting content. Today, we're going to talk about post-production. Then the next episode will be all about ad data and how data connects with creative decisions. And then we'll talk a little bit about how all that plays together. But today, we're going to talk about post-production. Let's jump into what is post-production. A lot of people don't really understand, but at the core of a great post-production process, you need a few things. 1, editing. 2, collaboration. 3, file management. And 4, project management. Most people, most brands truly could create more ads and better ads if they just clarified their process: editing, collaboration, file management, project management. These 4 elements can make or break your success within post-production. So let's dive into 4 steps. Number 1, editing. Yes, a great edit starts with a great brief. If you didn't listen to the first episode, that is all about ideation, but also I talk about writing a great brief. You can make a great brief from the process that we discussed a few weeks ago, but an editor can't save bad footage or bad scripting. Okay, let me just say that again. An editor cannot save bad footage or bad scripting. So to have a great edit, you need to first have a great brief, great ideas, etc. Right? A video is just a visualization of a script. That's why copy is so important. That's why doing the research and all those things that we've talked about are so important. You can't have a great ad if you don't have any of those elements yet. So first, start with a great brief. It is the editor's job to go through the script, go through the brief, and then also go through all of the content and find the best video clips that connect with what is being said in the script. All right. I'm going to walk you through some things that the editor should focus on when they are doing their edits. First is the hook. To make a great video ad, you start with the hook. If the hook is not clear or makes sense, then the rest of the video won't perform. We know that that is true when it comes to planning and coming up with the ideas, but that is also very true when it comes to actually editing the content. It is better for the editor to focus on the hook to make sure it pops, stands out, and just make sure that it is clear, just like you would with the writing. So you've spent so much time writing and shooting all this content, and then if the editor's makes it super confusing or too quick of a hook, all of a sudden, all of that work is out the door. It's gone. No bueno, right? So it is super important for you as the person who is in charge of making sure that the editor does a great job is make sure that they're spending time on the hook and making sure that that hook is the best footage for the hook, the best visuals, the best text on camera, screen, all of that stuff. It needs to be so clear and they need to watch that through. If they know that that first 3 seconds is fire, they can move on. Okay. Now, beyond the hook, let's just talk about B-roll. The key is to match what is being said to what is being shown. Okay. So you've got a script and you got to make sure that what is being said also matches what's being shown. Like those two things need to go together. And a lot of times I actually see ads where what's being said is not connected to what is being shown. So if you remember in the episode about the briefs, I talked a lot about putting together or having B-roll suggestions for every line of copy. So like for every line of copy, every sentence of copy, there was like under it a B-roll suggestion. This takes out the guessing for the editor, right? So the editor doesn't need to know exactly like, oh, I know that this shot needs to be here. They can find it and they can get it. The editor's job at that point is instead of doing less organization of footage and all that stuff, they can think more about, is this edit snappy? Is this quick? Is this the best shot? The best take? Does it make sense? Right? So they can do more of that versus being like, oh, I wonder what should be shown here. It's like they don't do all that guessing. Like the creative strategist does all that for them. They can just focus on making sure that the edit itself is awesome. Now, I did just mention, like, make sure the edit is snappy and quick and not boring. Cool. I will caveat that to say, there are times where you actually might want to go slower in an edit, especially if you're talking to an older audience. But even then, even if you do want to go slower, you can't have a clip holding for like 5 seconds unless there's like a lot of action within that clip. So like as you're editing the B-roll, you want it to be snappy, but you don't want it to be too snappy. And at times you could let it be slow, but also not too slow. And the best way to think about it is if the clip is too long, then like if to know if it's too long, if you're itching for the next clip, it's too late, right? Like if you're like, okay, next thing, no, too late, right? You want to give people enough in each clip to understand what they are seeing, but not too much so that you make them want more. All right. So there's this like weird, delicate balance of like, how much do you want? And you got to we're talking frames. You don't want to go too quick where they don't understand what the heck just happened. Right. But you also don't want to go too slow and bore your viewer. If you want to get super scientific, your range of how long a clip should go should be 0.8 to 0.8 seconds to 1.7 seconds. That's a good range to play in. I'll just leave it there. All right. But like, do you need to always like, I'm not saying like you need to like always be within that range. I'm just saying that's a good range to start. That's a good range to start thinking about it. Okay. Don't probably go over it, but don't go under it. But then again, it makes sense to go lower than that or higher than that in terms of seconds. Break the rules. It's okay. But let me give you at least some rules to play with when it comes to editing. Let's talk about captions and text on screen. I'm in the belief that you should caption all your videos on social. Like some people listen with sound, but most don't. Okay. There's a lot of stats out there. One recently from Verizon and Publicis Media. 80% of viewers are most likely to finish a video with subtitles. So your captions are important. I think you should caption them. Now, that being said, they shouldn't take up the whole screen. Like, you shouldn't have like 3 big lines of text. I think captions should be on 1 line, 2 lines at most. If you want to get specific, 1 line, 13 to 15 characters in a line. This keeps the captions snappy, but not too fast, where it's easy to read them and still enjoy the video. If you do multiple lines for captions, more than 2, it's very hard for the eyes to read. So 2 at the max. But even if you do 2, it should be very few words. Beyond the captions, having text on screen can enforce what is being said and shown. So we don't want the text to be too distracting or in a way where it just gets in the way of seeing the actual video. So I like to simplify the copy on screen. That makes it easy to read, understand, and see what's going on. Text on screen is very helpful. It really can enhance what is being shown. Obviously, you need to have good video, but text on screen can actually really help the engagement of that video as well as enhance what is being shown. Something that does not talk enough about, which is music. I think it's a key player for the ad. Music can really set the vibe, and honestly, like, music can, like, help. It doesn't do a huge gain, but it can actually ruin an ad and the vibe of the brand. So it's like it's more so like you need to get it right, not so that it's gonna help you, but more so that it doesn't hurt you. Like, when I'm thinking about a song for an ad, I first think about the pace of the song first. Do you need a fast or slow paced song? Then I try and get a genre that's connected with the brand and feels aligned. Like, don't play a techno song for a kid's brand, or maybe don't play a country song for a workout video. Like, those don't really the tone doesn't match. It's okay to go through a lot of songs to find the right fit, and I think you should. I think you should spend that time. But please, for the love of God, do not use copyrighted music. I mean, you're gonna get fined. I'm warning you now. Do not use copyrighted music. I am always shocked when I audit brands. I'm like, what are you doing? Don't use copyrighted music. There are so many tools in which you could use to get free music. It's ridiculous. Like, I use Epidemic Sound, but there's artlist.io, Epidemic Sound. There's a few other ones that are like you can use. There's so much copyright free music that's very good. Do not use copyrighted music. The last part about editing when it comes to editing is the talking on camera. Obviously, you need to have a great script, whatnot, but to also think about from the edit itself, you want to make sure that there's no gaps between lines and the talking flows really well together. Ideally, the actor or creator has done a good job at this, but the editor can make sure that there are no dead spaces between the lines, as well as like picking the best takes too. Because sometimes, like when we shoot, there's like multiple takes, and it's like, hey, can you get the best take here that flows well? That's the key. When you do have talking, and mainly like the talking on screen, like when you see the person actually talking, you can use jump cuts, zoom ins and outs, and this can keep the talking pretty engaging versus it feeling pretty flat. I don't think you need to go crazy. Like, you don't need to cut every like 0.2 seconds, but a little movement does keep the pace of that video, especially if the talking is like a few seconds, right? So think about how up above when I was talking about the B-roll, and I was like, okay, like in a range zero point 0.8 to 1.7 seconds per clip. Like, think about it. If somebody's talking and doing a few different sentences all at one go, that's like 3 or 5 seconds. Like, if you were doing B-roll, you wouldn't want it to be one long clip. In the same way, you probably want to be like cutting in every second of there. So there should be like 5 or so cuts, or maybe you have some motion or whatever. So like, just think about it that way. Like, think about talking on camera as B-roll. Like, if you have a longer clip, try to find ways to kind of add some movement to keep the pace of it. All right. So to review, an editor will go through, those are the things that I'm looking at for an editor, right? Like, these are the moments that you've got the brief, like the edit is pretty much given to you. This is what, as an editor, you should be looking at. Now, the editor creates the ad, sends it. There's review. Let's talk about the second part, which is collaboration. I never expect the first draft to be perfect. Let me say that again. I never expect the first draft to be perfect. It shouldn't be, because it's a first draft. The biggest thing when it comes to post-production is collaboration. The reason why brands might struggle with creating content is because they are not good collaborators. Okay. Before I was doing this, I was a professional dancer. I've been on production with 60 plus people on stage at one point. You need collaboration. It's not all going to work in one go. So my background within arts is very much lots of feedback. Even the best dancers that I worked with always got feedback, always took correction, and always took correction well. And that's something that I pride myself on for my team. I always say, you need to be able to take correction well. They can give me feedback, I can give them feedback, but feedback is necessary. It is, in my opinion, the make it or break it of a great edit. It is hard to talk about an edit when you're just talking theory, right? Like you could be like, oh, look at this brief, all this stuff. It's like, okay, that's good. But like once you actually get an edit in front of you, there's something to work off of. And so that's why for me, I push my editors to get the first draft out as fast as possible because like I would hate for them to like try to like perfect the edit and be completely off from where we actually want to be. And now they've wasted so much time, the product time, and now it's going to be late. So have a great brief, sure. Have the editor go through those editing moments that I just talked about, but do it as fast as possible. And then to minimize confusion, get the first draft out as fast as possible so that the creative strategist can actually make sure that it's going in the right direction. But the creative strategist needs to spend the time reviewing the work. Here is exactly how you're going to review the video. Warning, you're going to be spending way more time reviewing this video than you probably will anticipate me saying, but it's worth it. Let's jump in. First step, watch all the way through. Do not comment. Do not write notes. Just watch. Did it convince you? If not, what needs to change? If it did, move on to the next stage. Part 2, right? But like just think about it. What needs to change? Why did it not convince you? But if it did convince you, like, oh, okay, cool. This was actually pretty good. You can go to step 2. Step 2, watch the ad again and make sure all of the visuals are what you want. Start to add comments for the editor. Okay? First time, just watch it. Vibes. Did it work? Did it accomplish the angle that you were hoping for? Part 2, watch it again. Just watch for visuals. Part 3, watch again and make sure the talking is fluid. It's okay to cut lines if you feel like they're extra. So sometimes once you have seen it in person, once you've seen the edit come together, the script that you wrote out might not be as good as you hoped, or maybe it's a little long, maybe it's a little bit more boring. You can cut as needed. Number 4, watch again and make sure you feel good about the edit comments you just made. So as you've given all those edits, you watch the 4th time to check on your edits from stage 1, 2, and 3. Then you watch a 5th time to check captions, text on screen, coloring of video, and music. Okay? That is a lot of times to watch just one video, let alone all the different videos you might be creating. But you are doing a disservice for not being thorough. I don't know if this is a hot take. It's just the facts. The same people who complain that the ads aren't working are the same people who aren't willing to get their hands dirty and actually collaborate. Okay? No one said that this work was easy. I didn't promise you that this work was easy. This work is hard. Creative work is the hardest work in your business function, period. That's how I feel. Maybe others will disagree with me. I really do believe that it is the most complex. You have to be the most organized. There's a lot of factors that go involved, and there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of things that it's a lot. Okay? It's not easy, but if you are willing to give the feedback, you end up less frustrated and happy that your vision is actually coming to life. And over time, as you work with your editor, they're going to learn how you communicate and your style and what you want for ads. Some people look negatively at having to give ads. That just personally is I just think that's a bad posture to have. You got to be excited about giving edits because, at least for my team, we're excited to get them because we know that it's collaboration that is necessary. And very rarely are you going to get a person's vision immediately. So first draft is fast, then you course correct. I'm not sponsored, but I probably should be, but I'm not. The reason I like to use air.ink is because you can annotate and have timestamps for your comments, making it easy for the editor to understand what you are saying in the comments. There's other platforms out there, frame.io and some other ones. Air to me is just more intuitive. It's not as complex from the collaboration side of things. I think that frame.io has a lot of other things that are going on that just I don't feel like you need. But the ease of collaboration is super important for the editor to get back to their job. So instead of trying to spend hours on admin and trying to figure out what are you saying, is it on Slack and they're doing all this stuff, it's like, no, it's just like all on air. It's time stamped. You can annotate it. It's awesome. So that's why I love using Air. This is not a plug for them necessarily. It's just the tool that we use to get the best collaboration. All right. We've got editing, collaboration. Let's talk about file management. Ooh, file management. All right. All right. All right. All right. This is the most unsexy part of editing, but it's also the most critical part. Oof. If you spend 5 minutes searching a folder and another 15 minutes later, over the course of like 44 hours, you've probably spent like 45 minutes in File Manager. The worst part is that every time you're like looking at the File Manager, you're cutting out of your editing program. So you lose concentration, making it really hard to go into deep work. Unorganized files equals distraction and confusion. Those two things, distraction and confusion, are just not what you want your editor to have. Again, not sponsored, but we use Air to organize our files. We have all of our files in Air, so the editor just kind of grabs and edits there. Clients can also get the access to the file edits, so it's great. So the goal of file management is to make it easier for your editors to find files and edit the ads. There's kind of like two ways you can do this. I will talk about our way, which is the second way I will tell you about. But if you wanted to use Air, you could tag your content by certain attributes in Air or like by product. And then the editor doesn't need to like click through hundreds of folders. They could just use the search bar and pick the content that they like, which is great, especially if you're a brand. We don't do that because we shoot all of our content and it's raw. So like there might be like one good clip, like 3 seconds in a 2-minute clip. So if we were searching and doing all that stuff in Air, it just wouldn't work as much. So what we do is we tag all of our content in Adobe Premiere. So we basically cut through all the footage for the brand. Then we label the footage based on what is being shown in Premiere. And then basically essentially the same thing. We'll be able to look at that footage and find like, oh, we need the eating shot, and then we'll see all the eating shots, or we need application of face cream shots. And then, so, all the face cream shots are there. And then in the future months, we stay in the same Premiere project and we can just pull clips all together from the months before. It's super efficient for us and it's all one program. Essentially, there's many ways to do it, but like whatever you decide to do, you need to be able to tag and search easily. So figure out how you can tag and search easily. What I'll say of what not to do with your files is do not just randomly toss footage into folders with no system. And then if you do that, you'll just basically never end up using that content. The organization then also becomes dependent on the person who set it up. So let's say you got a marketing manager. They know each file, they know each folder, they know where everything is. But what happens when they leave? What happens when a new person joins? They don't know where anything is. A tagging system can allow you to transcend folders and find files quicker. It makes things faster for editors, but it also makes it so that you are not person dependent on what's in each folder. It is worth the time to build a system that works for you to save a headache for us. Like our system really works for us and us only. Like that's why I'm like kind of hesitant to share it, not because I think you should do it. What I want you to get at or understand from this section is file management is important. You need to figure out your file management, what works for you, but do not focus on this. If you have good file management, you can save hundreds of hours as well as have your employees focused, in deep work, and more efficient. I mean, it's just the ROI of it is so high. Like it's probably the biggest thing you could do. So figure out what works and also recognize that if you don't do it, it's going to bite you in the butt. You can decide if you want to use our system, if you want to use Air, if you want to use any other sort of system, but just figure out a system that you can easily search and find things. The last thing is project management. So we've got things to think about for editing. We've got collaboration. We've got file management. And the last part of a good, solid post-production system is project management. Slack is not your project management tool. Okay. You need a true tracker. Especially when you get to a bigger scale, it is hard to keep track of everything that's being edited, being revised, or launched. You honestly don't even need anything like super fancy, but you need something to kind of track your progress. For us, we use Coda, which is kind of like Notion. And I have this whole like master table built out sort of thing. But each video has its own row. And for each video or static ad, we make sure there's a due date, an editor assigned, who's managing that edit, and then who's reviewing that edit. And then lastly, we have different stages. So it's like it goes assigned, ready to edit, editing, internal review, revisions, client revisions, ready to launch. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit different if you are just a brand. You might have a different stages. So however you want to do it. Some people might include the filming part and the creative strategy as in the stages. Because we have that separate for different people, we don't. But like the point is have stages. This helps you understand where's the video in the pipeline and who's editing what. The thing that I like about Coda, or at least how we use Coda, is that we keep all of the comments in Coda. So a lot of people might use like Slack or email, but we do most of our communication in Coda. So the reason why we do that is because it keeps a record of all the discussion. Let's say we have for one of our clients, She's Birdie, it's September video 1. Cool. All of the conversation about September video 1 for She's Birdie is in that task line. So if you were to say, "Oh, what were we saying about that video?" You could always just go back to there. You don't have to search through Slack. It's just in there. So you're able to keep a true log of comments. It also doesn't distract everybody else about what content's being produced and all that stuff because it's just to the people that are tagged, which is awesome. So I love siloing out a lot of that communication as well as streamlining it. And this is super helpful at scale. So to kind of conclude that section, have some sort of project management tool. Don't do it in Slack. Cause like when you have like 100 videos that you're needing to edit, doing that all in one place, like in one channel or multiple channels, it's like who's doing what. It's just, you got to centralize it. And Slack is not the place to do it. You're going to be searching threads, going back. It's just chaos. Have a project management tool. We use Coda, use whatever you want. Focus on what are the stages that you guys do, and then build those out and just track it. It's super simple. You can always get fancier, but have something to track. What I want to do to kind of finish out this process is the process of an editor from start to finish. I would suggest building out or thinking about your process for an editor start to finish. We have this massive long doc that goes step by step, like with Adobe Premiere, every single thing. I can share that if you want that. You just let me know. But I'll give you the 15 steps of how it should go. This is for the editor, and this is how we'll end. Step 1, send brief and files to editor. Okay, so editor should know the brief and have all the files. Step 2, editor should review the brief, and the creative strategist should explain the brief, initial vision, and anything about the footage. So we haven't even talked about editing yet, right? We just look at the brief, understand what it is. The creative strategist will talk about what they shot, all that stuff. Cool. Number 3, editor organizes the footage in the editing project. Step 4, editor will go through all the footage and clip the best footage. Okay. So just getting all the best, cutting through all that footage. There's bad takes, all that stuff, just cutting through everything and labeling it. Step 5, editor will place the A-roll and talking onto the sequence. The script should match the brief. So we like to basically start with all the talking. Get the talking and the script together. Make sure that that's nice and tight before you do any sort of B-roll stuff. Once you get that talking on the sequence, then step 6, editor starts to place the clips they like for B-roll over the A-roll and on the sequence based on the brief suggestions. Then step 7, the editor will play through the video, tighten up the pacing, add cuts, add motion onto the footage. Step 8, add captions and text on screen. Add 9, add music to match the vibe of the footage. Step 10, add any sound effects if needed. Step 11, finally add color on footage if needed. Step 12, export out, upload to Air, notify the creative strategist to review the content. Step 13, editor gets the comments. They'll go back into the project and make the final edits. If the videos need another look, the creative strategist will. If not, then the editor will also reframe to all the other formats. And then step 15, that was step 14. Step 15, export all formats and upload content and have the media buyer download and launch. 15 steps. That's how we do it, step by step. And you can track all of this on your project management, but that is it. You got to know what makes a great edit. You got to have great collaboration. You got to have a clear process for your file management and a clear process for your project management. But if you can tighten all of these things up, you can build an amazing content engine that can just absolutely crush for your brand. Then all this stuff is going to take out a ton of guessing work so that you can just focus on being creative. That's the goal. Systems are there so you don't have to think about what's next, what do I got to say, or how do I got to do this, or where's this file. Take all of that out. That way, you can spend more time being creative, more time making better edits, making better content. That's where you're going to get the gains. Yes, it's about being efficient, but it's also about taking a lot of guessing work out and admin work out so that your editors can be creative, so that your creative strategists can be creative. These are the things that you need to do to have a great post-production process. Steal them, take them, do what you want with them. Hopefully this was helpful. This is the cutting room. In the cutting room, where we talk about creative decision making, this is what we're doing in this podcast. We're breaking it down. I can tell you this right now. Nobody's going in depth in their process. Nobody's doing content like this. And I'm feeling excited. I love sharing this stuff. I want you to steal it. I want you to take it. I also want you to critique it. How else are you guys doing your content production? I'm just one way. There's plenty of ways to do it. I want to learn about what you guys are up to. So hit me up. Let me know. Follow me on Twitter, Matthew Gutozzi. And I'll see you in the next episode where we're going to be talking about ad data, setting up of reports. What are we looking at? That's it. Peace out. Bye-bye.